We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors, where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Wake Up Aligned. I'm your host, Dr. Shannon McMurtry, here with the one and only Tom Owen, good friend of mine and brother in this thing called chiropractic. Tom, very excited about the show we have lined up for today. We're going to talk about a subject that you know very well. You've taught about it for years and years. And no matter how much we talk about this subject, Tom, it never runs its course. It never runs out of relevance to the audience. So I don't know if we want to let the big reveal out now and tell the audience what the subject is, or just kind of get into it and let them become aware as we talk through it. So anything you want to offer before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the show today?
No, I think we should just let them experience as it slowly reveals itself. And I know there's an example that we're going to use to share with everyone so they can kind of get an idea of watching someone transform in their journey. Mm-hmm. That's a big piece of it, right? Is their journey from where they were and how they were paralyzed, lived in a prison, basically, right? Because that's what this does. That's what this subject does. It puts you in a prison. It paralyzes you. But just through that story, that transformation, to realize that when you overcome it, the freedom that comes from it. So I think we just let the story reveal it.
This is a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, because I remember who I was back in 1998 when I opened my practice. You know, you guys helped me pick a market, get ready to open. I went through that Right Start program, which is phenomenal. Everybody in AMC is aware of how well the Right Start doctors do. Well, I was one of those. But I had an issue that you guys couldn't fix at that time. This is something that I had to fix for myself. You guided me. So this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I had everything in the building at the location. Everything was set up. My equipment was in there. All I had to do was drive to the location, get out of the car, go inside that building, and do the work. And I was unable to get out of the car because of what we're going to talk about today. And like I said, people who know me now may not even understand or believe that that was my life back then, but that was. But I think I have even a better story than my own with this subject, and that is a really phenomenal AMC family member by the name of Dr. Rod Dollinger. Tom, Hot Rod, there he is. You know him very well. He is a fixture at our AMC boot camps. And for those of you who have never met Dr. Dollinger, let me try to describe him to you. There's a movie by Michael Douglas called Falling Down, right? And in that movie, Michael Douglas's character has a very short haircut. He wears dark glasses, and that's almost what Dr. Rod Dollinger looks like, right? He has a very short white haircut. He has these dark glasses. But he's a very engaging person. He's a happy person. He and his wife, Gina, have a very large family. And to meet Dr. Rod is to meet somebody that is genuine, sincere, loving, and you would never know it. But that guy harbored some fear inside of him. And it really created problems for him living his true identity in chiropractic. So, Tom, I want to share with the audience a little bit about Dr. Rod and his journey in AMC. Dr. Rod joined us in 2012, and he, like I said, great guy, has all the philosophy, has a desire to serve his community out there in Washington State. He's willing to do the work. He'll do whatever you need him to do, and he believes very strongly about chiropractic. He talks of philosophy at places. So He's a great caliber guy. But before he ever came to us, he had a pretty significant life event that kind of stole some of his confidence. And he invested in fear. He invested in scarcity because of those circumstances. And these circumstances were really outside of his control. And there wasn't much he could do to fix them in the moment. But once that transition happened, Tom, in Dr. Rod was a changed man. So he comes to AMC. He wants help with his practice, but he's got the baggage of this past event carried forward. So he comes to AMC in 2012, his first full year where he sent in stats and we're tracking his progress is 2013. Now, it wasn't a bad year, but it wasn't a year where Dr. Rod was living his God-given potential. All right? So the numbers of 2013, about 120 new patients in, about 5,500 patient visits, $245,000 collected. Hey, that's not a bad practice, is it, Tom? He's not going to go broke doing that. Now, he may not feed his, big family steak dinners every night. He might be on ramen or beans and rice a couple of nights a week, but there's nothing to turn your nose up about that kind of practice. He can make it. The problem is from 2013, that first full year, to 2018, the year prior to his transformation, there was growth, but there wasn't a lot of growth. And what do I mean by growth? He was going up average of about 20 new patients a year. His patient visits increased about 2,000, right? This is good stuff. And he collected about $200,000 more in 2018 compared to 2013. Now, you think with all that increase, hey, we'd be celebrating. And Dr. Rod was genuinely happy about his results. But there was always that seed of bitterness inside because he knew he was capable of much more. And I think our listeners, that's what really frustrates them about when they hold themselves back. The people in our audience listening right now, when they hold themselves back through fear or doubt or worry, it's frustrating because they know they can do better. They know they're capable of more. And that was where Dr. Rod was. Well, as these things go, he had some transferring of mentorship, and he came to me, and I was very excited to work with him because I'd always admired the man and the doctor when he was in our classes. But one of the first things that he and I started to talk about was fear, right? F-E-A-R. And he's not the only one who had fear by a long stretch, right? This is something very common that we see. But we talked about what had happened. We talked about how fear had gotten into him and into his family and into his practice from these events that happened before he ever found his way to this family. And it didn't happen overnight, but we started chipping away. And Dr. Rod in 2018 had a good year. But in the start of 2019, early in the year, he decided that he was going to not let fear hold him back anymore. And that was a big decision, right? People hear that and they say, well, that must have been easy for him. No. That was just as hard for him as it was for me or anybody else who's gone to battle with their own limited thinking and their fear. And really, you're only going to get through that by taking courage, by stepping out on faith. What was it that your father said? Fear knocked on the door, faith answered, opened the door, nobody was there, right? You step out on faith as the starting point of that journey. So if you're listening and you have fear in your system, take faith. Anyways, back to Dr. Rod. So 2018 was a good year. In early 2019, he decides we're going to get rid of that. We're going to drop that fear. And this is when Dr. Rod started to really blossom into his full potential. So in 2019, right, 2018 again, 140 new patients, 7,300 patient visits, 445,000 collected, right? Not bad numbers. In 2019, we started to see some dramatic changes. Now we're at 150 new patients. Now we're at over 8,000 patient visits. Now we're over $500,000 collected for the first time in his career. And we celebrated that. And I was happy for Dr. Rod because he was doing better in his clinic and in his business, but I was extremely proud of him for doing battle with that fear and really mastering that. And it wasn't just that he mastered it for himself. He took that battle with fear to his family, right? No more fear in this family. He took that battle with fear to his staff, and some of his staff is family as well. No more fear in this clinic, right? They drew a line in the sand. They're like, we're done with this. So 2019 was the year that decision happened. And since 2019, Dr. Rod is one of those offices that on the lean years will grow $50,000 to $70,000 above the year before. But there are years where he's growing $100,000 more than the previous year. Now, what I want all the listeners to know, especially the ones that never met Dr. Rod, is this year, in just the first few months, he is on a pace to be over 10,000 patient visits rendered. He's on a pace to be over $800,000 collected, right? And that's exciting, and we're going to celebrate those numbers. What I'm really excited about for him is he's living his full potential, right? He is doing the most he can, given the way he practices and given his physical stamina. This year, he just completed a renovation on a brand new space. He's moving into a space with over 3,000 square feet. He is hiring a massage therapist. He is actively looking for an associate. He's expanding his opportunities to serve his community. And he's celebrating his 60th birthday this year. Now, most of us, Tom, what do? We think that we're going to reach a level, and then we start getting into our upper 50s, 60s, mid 60s. We're going to start to taper off, right? Isn't that the concept that you see mostly out there? Well, something special happens when you decide that you're going to live in faith and you're going to really stretch yourself to achieve your potential. You don't want to fade off, and dwindle. You don't want to wither away. You want to serve more. You want to take the blessings that you have, the gifts that you have, and bless other people. And that's what Dr. Rod is doing. And I'm really excited for him, not just the journey and where he is right now and what's in front of him. I'm just excited because he did what a lot of people won't do. He went to battle with that fear, right? And Tom, I know this is a subject that you just see pervasive in chiropractic. I know you see chiropractors putting themselves in a jail cell of their own creation with that fear. And it's nice when we can have an example of somebody who's broken free from that prison. So I was excited to share that with you today, and I hope that inspires everyone in the audience to not be fearful, to take courage, to be stepping in faith that they can do what's inside of them.
There are so many different directions that I could go and things that you shared there. First of all, let's just call it what it is. Dr. Rod is probably one of the most genuine, humble people that you can ever meet. And it has just a beautiful family, a shining example of what a family should be. And I have to just, give kudos where it belongs. But as you told that story, as I said, there's a lot of different ways I could go. I want the listener to be able to hear that inspiring story. But if they're locked in the prison of fear, a lot of times, well, that's great for someone else, but I don't know how to overcome that. So, as you know, in my segment, I'd like to talk about some things that you can do, just some exercises, but also to recognize where the fear comes from. Fear is obviously false evidence appearing real. And if it's false, that means it's not true. So the best thing is to do an examination of where could that fear be coming from? Because if it's not true, then somewhere along the way, we have believed a lie, a falsehood.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I talk a lot about identity, beliefs, values, purpose. Most issues, most transformations, or most levels of growth in your life, not just your business, your practice, but just generally in life, you can usually back stuff up to those four. It's going to be found there somewhere. But the biggest one of when it comes to fear is beliefs. Obviously, somewhere along the way, we have gravitated to a limiting belief, and those limiting beliefs can put you into a prison. So I think there was a few things that you shared there that I want to point out. We can talk about fear until, as they say in the South, till the cows come home, but it doesn't do anything. I can't do anything for it. You can't do anything for it until the person has what I call that line in the sand moment. When are you going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired? For those of you that are going to sit out there and tell me, yeah, but if your first two words out of your mouth after listening to this is, yeah, but you don't know my situation. You don't know my background. You don't know what was taught to me. You don't know. If it always starts with, yeah, but, you're not there. You're not at a moment of transformation. You have to get to that point. And when you get there, hey, there's a way to step over that line and move into an arena of freedom that you don't even recognize. So, as I said, most fears are going to be based in some form of identity issue, some form of belief, purpose, and values. Now, let me kind of transfer over to, okay, so what fears are based in one of those four? You said that, I recognize it, you do too. It doesn't matter how many times we talk about this one subject, we keep talking about it, and we see transformations and we see these things take place. But every time you get a group of chiropractors together, the word fear, the word fear is in the room.
Yep.
And what are the most common fears of chiropractors? This podcast is for chiropractors and the chiropractic lifestyle. What are those three?
Let's get them out.
One is fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of rejection, fear of loss, or fear there's not enough to go around for me. That's where that value comes in.
Yep.
I'm not worth it, right? So if you're not worth it, then there's not enough to go around. So I need to be fearful of losing what I already got. So that's fear of loss. Fear of rejection is chiropractors, they on a value scale, they don't always think that they measure up and compare to other disciplines.
Right.
And, human beings in general don't like to be rejected. But when you take rejection down to the source, how do you overcome that fear of rejection? Well, you have to realize that fear itself has to be self-based. All right. So fear is most of the time self-preservation. It's it's self-based. And when you can get the purpose, remember I said four things: identity, value, purpose, beliefs. When you get the purpose is bigger than the fear, you can overcome it and you can step over that. So when the fear is based in self, that's not a big enough purpose. It can keep you in your prison. But when you get your focus on, hey, I have to do this, I have to step over because I have to do it for my family, or I have to do it for my patients, or I have to do it for my community. So when chiropractic, your mission, your purpose gets bigger than the fear, then you'll have that moment where you step over the line. And one other one that I want to point out is another, and I think you'll agree, Dr. Shannon. The third one is what others will think.
Absolutely.
I can't believe this, but people actually will hold themselves in a prison, torture, right? Fear tortures you, and they'll hold themselves over what someone else might think. You have to, that is self-based. That's somehow wrapped up in your identity. See how they all go back to them? Something about something you're accepting as your identity would care about what others think, whether it's other chiropractors or what your family thinks of you as a chiropractor, or what the patient might think. The fact of the matter is, fear is based in falsehood. And I'm going to give you a couple of things before I throw it back to you, Dr. Shannon, okay, Tom, I'm listening to you. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm ready. I'm ready to draw a line in the sand. I recognize that I let my fear of rejection, fear of loss, or my scarcity mindset, I let what others might think control me. And I'm recognizing a little bit of what you're talking about, Tom, that fear of identity, not fear of identity, but the basis of fear is found in my identity, my values, my purpose, my beliefs. We need to expand on that, and that might be another episode. But what are a couple of quick exercises that you can utilize in a moment's notice to start overcoming fear? Because fear starts in a form of thought, right? You could get up one morning ready to rock and roll. Something happens to you while you're driving, windshield time, some form of thought flashes in your mind, or someone says something at an inopportune time, and all of a sudden it makes you think a certain way. And just that fast, it derails you, right? So if fear starts in the form of thoughts, it has to, right? It's wrapped up in your head. Then what is a thought that you could use to overcome it?
Right. And
that is, I'm going to give it to the audience. I want you to think. Sometimes it can't be done, in a moment's notice. Sometimes it takes days, weeks, or months to figure out. But typically, when you really analyze the situation, so you're going to be fearful of walking in and preparing a care plan and making a recommendation. I'm scared to go in because I'm fearful of what that patient might think, might say. I'm fearful they might reject me. Always the answer of every fear is, what's the worst that could happen? Asking yourself, put yourself in a situation. You talked about Dr. Owen. He was my father, right? And as a dad, he taught me, not as an instructor, he taught me as a dad. He said, son, always try to figure out what's the absolute worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's tough to put yourself in that situation. Well, the worst thing that could happen is I go bankrupt, I lose my friends, I lose my I have to start over. Okay. Would I still be breathing? Would I still have my license? Would I still have,
Right.
You have to get yourself into that situation of going, okay, what's the absolute worst thing that could happen? And then ask yourself after you figure that out, all right, could I live with that? I don't want to live with it, but could I live with it? And once you figure out, yes, yeah, I could survive that, then fear loses control. Always figure out what's the worst thing that happened. Now, here we are talking about fear of rejection of what somebody might think in a care plan or presenting a second report. What's the worst thing they could say? No, I don't accept it. Great. We'll move on to the next patient. Fear should not be controlling you. And that's one simple way. One more I'm going to give you, and then I'll throw it back to you, Dr. Shannon, is a great way is to figure out what's it look like 5 years from now? will this situation that I'm thinking about that's dominating my thought patterns, how will it affect my life 5 years from now? And if the answer is it's not going to affect me at all, then forget about it. And then if the answer is, oh no, that would affect my life 5 years from now. Okay, the answer is start doing something about it today. I love a quote my mom always shares with me. She goes, thought ain't doing. Thought ain't doing. And if you're constantly wrapped up in your thoughts, then you're not doing anything about it. And if there is something that's going to affect your life 5 years from now, then start an action plan to address it today. But don't sit there and stay paralyzed in fear, because guess what? You're going to stay right where you are. It doesn't matter how many new patients, for those of you that think marketing and advertising and new patients your answer, it ain't going to be found in the new shiny equipment. It's always going to be found in what's between those ears of what you're allowing to dominate your life. Notice that it's not dominating Dr. McMurtry's life. Notice it's not dominating Dr. Dollinger's life. Notice it's not Dr. Osborne, Dr. Peterson, Dr. LeCarey, Lindsey Johnston, or Dr. Lisa Beagley. Just go on down the line. What do all those doctors have that you don't? And the answer is nothing. They have no more innate than anyone else. You don't have any more innate than me, Dr. Shannon. I don't have any more than you, and not one listener out there has any more innate than any of us. So the fact is what are we allowing into our innate to process through our mind, and what are exercises that you can, or steps you can take to overcome it? The last thing I want to point out is and I'm so proud of Dr. Dollinger, but please notice that Dr. Dollinger is a happier man.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
It's not the numbers.
Nope.
I'm thrilled that his practice has exploded, but notice that he's working smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
So when everyone heard, well, I don't want to grow. See, limited beliefs.
Yeah.
Limited beliefs say $250,000 a month or a year in 2013. Now he's doing $800,000. I don't want to work that hard. That was the first limiting belief of some listener today thought of.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Because your idea or your concept of practice is not the same concept that we're talking about. So Dr. Dollinger's having fun. He would probably say to you that he's working less than he was then, and he's certainly not as stressed as he was.
Absolutely
doing that, right? So,
Absolutely.
Realize that freedom of fear is a life of abundance, and it's in a life of enjoyment and fulfillment. So that's what I had for you, Dr. Shannon.
Wow. I love that. And listeners, you might want to take that last 15 minutes that you just heard, and you might want to put that on a loop that is spoken into your life every single day. I mean, I know that these podcasts, we want to inform and entertain, but as your dad would say, that was good stuff, Tom, and I appreciate it. I knew this subject being very passionate about people overcoming. I knew that you'd be on a roll there, so that was awesome, and I appreciate you sharing all that. Getting through that fear, taking the courage, stepping in faith, and getting the freedom that you're talking about, that's one of the best gifts you can ever give yourself, right? It really is. And I hope and pray that all of our listeners dialed into that message today. Speaking of dialing into messages, I have a great announcement to share with everybody. We have an address for you to send feedback to the show, right? I believe that address is mailbag, mailbag, all one word, at amcfamily.com. Did I get that right? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, very good.
Mailbag at amcfamily.com. Now, you can send all the negative feedback of what you don't like about Dr. Shannon.
No, you title that for Tom. Attention, Tom,
Uh-huh.
for the negative feedback.
Okay. And then obviously we're really wanting to hear your questions. I mean, what are subjects, like you said, we want to keep this light. We don't want this to be lecture. This needs to be conversation. This needs to be an exercise of innate, as I was talking about earlier. But what's on your innate? What are subjects that we want to talk about? We'd love to hear from you, and happy to engage with the audience.
Yeah, and when you send send that feedback in, if you have a question that you want addressed, but you want to be anonymous, you just say that in the email, right? Please address this question, but keep my name out of it. If you are happy for us to share your name or your feedback and give a shout out to you, let us know that as well. We want to honor your wishes, but that's important for us. Getting the feedback of what you're getting from these podcasts. How can we improve? I mean, honestly, we're kidding around about sending the negative stuff to one or the other, but we really do want to improve this. We want this to be something that you're not only getting benefit from, but you're actually looking forward to every single week. And then certainly any questions of things that you want us to address or talk about, we're happy to do so. So,
and any shout outs.
Oh yeah.
Any shout outs right back to us. If you're enjoying the show and you're getting something out of it, tell us about it. I mean, that encourages us to keep pressing forward with it, but also just shout outs in general for inside our AMC family. If you're having an experience at a boot camp, if there's something that, took place that you had a line in the sand moment at a boot camp or at a certified training center visit or something clicked for you, share that with us. Or if you're getting results or inside the practice, you've reached some milestones or some goals or some honorable mentions, share those with us as well. We want to celebrate with you.
Absolutely. Hey, we're up against the clock today, Tom. Great episode. I think this is one that people are going to come back to time and time again because, like we said, that fear, it's always bubbling up in the background, right?
That's what the devil loves. It's his favorite one. It's his favorite one, but you can defeat it by stepping on the head, as we say.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. Well, hit us up with that mailbag. Join us for the next episode, which will be coming next week, and we look forward to seeing you next time. God bless everybody. And one more thing before we go. If you're a chiropractor who's searching for a better way to build a more sustainable, low-stress practice, then you can contact us at amcfamily.com. You can schedule a discovery session, or you can access any of our free content, webinars, podcasts, and the like.